What's up, guys? Just want to talk to you real quick. As athletes or as college athletes, we really need to be aware of the risk and the benefit behind the things that we put into our body. This could be the food we eat, the supplements we take, prescription drugs, recreational drugs. All these decisions come with a cost, right? And the the benefit or the detriment of these decisions is going to weigh heavily on our physical health, on our physical performance, and in your case, your eligibility. Now, the NCAA has put together a list of eight um, classes of banned substances, or they put together a list of banned substances, which includes um, eight classes of drugs. And the one class that we're going to focus on are stimulants. And now stimulants, they affect our central nervous system. Think fight or flight. I had the ability to punch back. I had that ability to run away. And all this is important to my survival, right? But in the case of college athletes, we're thinking, they got more energy. They're a little more awake. Maybe they're more focused. They're more confident. All these things that we want pre-competition from our athletes, and stimulants can do that. Now, the list of stimulants banned by the NCAA include things like ephedrine and cocaine, but they're not limited to those things, and they affect. One thing in particular that I think most of us don't think about when we think of banned substances is probably caffeine, right? So we all grew up with caffeine. You can find it in your coffee, in your chocolate, in your tea. But nowadays it's so much more readily available, right? You're getting these bigger concentrations of caffeine that have been put into different products. Whether those are supplements or drinks and stuff like that. So our college students and college athletes, they know this. So when they need energy, or they feel like they need energy, um, they reach out for the Red Bulls, the energy drinks, the energy shots, the caffeine pills, the supplements that may have added caffeine inside of them. And this is where they're getting their caffeine, and it can be seen all over college campuses. You probably be seen all over, any gas station you stop at in the morning. People are reaching for that caffeine, right? And so, as far as caffeine goes, NCAA bans a certain amount of it, but it's a pretty heavy amount, right? So if you have a coffee, you're going to be safe. But the banned amount is 15 micrograms per milliliter, um, or 15 micrograms per milliliter, which, to put it in easier to understand form, that's about 500 milligrams of caffeine consumed 2 to 3 hours before a game, or about 6 to 8 coffees. That's a lot of coffee. So probably getting that in some other concentrated form. Now, the other day, I met a high school kid, and he comes in and he's talking about working out so he can go play lacrosse in college. And he's got his Crocs on, his sports mode. He's got his second Red Bull in the day, and I'm thinking we got more than just exercise and technique to go over with this young man. So, for most of us, caffeine though is, especially in low to moderate amounts, is not going to be detrimental, and in fact, it's probably more likely to be beneficial for most of us. Now, positive effects: muscular endurance, muscle firing rates, something better coordination and control, stimulated adrenal release, fight or flight chemicals, competition arousal, improved nerve signaling, so better muscle contraction, increased lipolysis and glycogen sparing, so we got more energy in those aerobic events, so think long endurance events, or even more power and staying more power production and staying power in those anaerobic events, right? So think about lasting longer in games like football, or things like that, right? So there's a lot of benefit to be reaped from caffeine, right? Improved cognitive abilities, and team sports huge, right? You got tactics and things like that are a part of the game, and we need to be able to execute on those. Um, Improve pain tolerance. Improve pain tolerance allows you to, again, go longer, go harder. You might even improve uh, power production, especially later in games. Improves strength, decreases in fatigue and time to exhaustion. game changers for our athletes. Now, some negative considerations to think about are definitely sleep disturbances, right? A lot of people have a hard time going to sleep, especially if they had caffeine later in the day. I think of it as being very habit forming. It can be anxiety inducing. It can not affect some people. And in fact, in certain parts of the population, it's been shown to actually decrease performance. Now, this is just a small portion of the population, but it's definitely a negative. And then the results from person to person vary a lot. So it's really hard to say how much each individual will benefit from this. Dosage wise, if you take a dose, which is, the recommended dose is 3 to 9 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, 60 minutes before competition, and really that should probably, in most people's cases, probably more beneficial at 3 to 6, but you can feel the effects within 15 minutes. And a lot of times this is peaking out around an hour and then kind of teetering off around 3 or 4 hours. Additional intake beyond the recommended amount, no benefit. Think you need another shot of 5-hour energy? Probably think again, right? Because really in reality, a lot of us are going to benefit from lower intakes of about 3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. And there's been a lot of people who've shown benefit from that. People who are habitual caffeine users may need to go above and beyond that, and that's okay. And our plans are going to be flexible. We're going to figure this out, okay? And longer bouts of exercise, we want to get more caffeine throughout the competition so we can continue to go and continue to kind of reap its benefit throughout that competition. You really need to be careful if that competition is later in the day, especially if you have things to do the next day, right? So if I'm taking caffeine for my game tonight, but I got a game in the morning, I may not get sleep. And that recovery that we get from sleep is definitely more important than the stimulation that we get from caffeine. So we need to think about the timing of things and how it fits into our schedule and make sure that it doesn't take away from our ability to do us and only adds to it, right? So individually, um, think about your response to caffeine. It's not going to be the same, so we have to be able to change as we kind of experiment with that. As long as we're not, going above that recommendation. Men receive better ergogenic side effects than women when it comes to anaerobic efforts. Um, but females still receive a benefit. So we want to make sure that we're not, pushing females away that might be in a more anaerobic sport from taking this. They just need to know that maybe the benefit's not going to be what their male counterpart has received. Um, Females tend to receive the same benefit in aerobic activities as males. So our endurance athletes should know that. A person who is a habitual caffeine user probably needs to take larger amounts before they compete to get the effects they want. Timing, we talked about that a little bit already, but we want to make sure that we are, you know, taking time into effect. We're not consuming stuff when it's going to be detrimental, and we may metabolize things faster. So we need to maybe take a second dose, or we need to take a slightly larger dose, 60 minutes before a game. The rate at which everything can be metabolized, that changes from person to person. So we got to figure that out. Other things that affect the rate at which that caffeine gets metabolized are, other things to think about are if we're taking oral contraceptives, if you have somebody who's pregnant, or if you're a certain part of their menstrual cycle, their training status and prior experience with caffeine, and then hormone replacement therapy. All of these things are going to potentially affect the level at which caffeine affects us and how it affects us. Okay, different amounts for different performers. One dose is not universal. We talked about that. Meanwhile, some people will benefit from arousal as they are understimulated. So, I think that, that person who should stay away because they're hyped up, there's another person who needs it because they need to be hyped. Okay? Factors that we need to think about when we're bundling all this together, the dosage, 3 to 6, some might say 3 to 9 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. Your age, we don't want to be giving young children, high doses of caffeine or regular doses of caffeine as they're going through, growth spurts. The timing and the way it affects our sleep and our anxiety levels we need to think about, and then our training status and how that all plays into it. So as you're putting together your plan, be flexible. Don't do what your partner does. Start with lower amounts, work your way up,